Welcome to the Biotech Executive Brief, your daily rundown of the developments shaping artificial intelligence, pharma and life sciences, and the broader business landscape. Each episode focuses on the specific news executives should have on their radar, from AI platforms and infrastructure to clinical developments, FDA decisions, manufacturing investments, earnings, and major shifts across global business. If you find these updates useful, subscribe to the Biotech Executive Brief to get daily updates on the industry and stay current on the developments that matter most. Today's brief covers Thursday, August 20th, 2026. Let's start with artificial intelligence, where today's news gives us examples of AI moving deeper into financial operations, software automation, robotics, cybersecurity, and another enormous wave of infrastructure spending. First, some of the world's largest banks are adopting AI directly within their foreign exchange operations. Citi, HSBC, and Standard Chartered are adopting Ant International's AI-based foreign exchange technology. The platform uses machine learning to improve currency forecasting and treasury decision-making, and this is a good example of enterprise AI moving beyond general-purpose assistance and into a very specific operational workflow. These banks aren't simply giving employees another chatbot. They're applying AI directly to financial forecasting and treasury operations. OpenAI is pushing further in that direction as well, but with a much broader use case. The company is moving ChatGPT toward more autonomous computer use with capabilities designed to allow AI to perform tasks directly through software interfaces rather than simply telling a person how to complete those tasks. In other words, the mouse and keyboard increasingly become something the AI can operate. That pushes ChatGPT another step from conversational assistant toward agentic platform, and it could materially change how employees eventually interact with enterprise software if these capabilities continue advancing. But greater autonomy also creates greater risk, and today's brief includes a very concrete example. Reuters detailed how a Texas student uncovered an AI-driven hacking attempt in which an autonomous system was being used to probe and exploit technology infrastructure. The incident highlights the other side of increasingly capable AI agents. The same ability to independently navigate systems and execute sequences of tasks can create new opportunities for legitimate automation and new cybersecurity threats. So as computer use agents become more capable, detection, containment, and human oversight become increasingly important parts of enterprise AI deployment. Google had two notable AI developments today. First, the company introduced new testing and planning capabilities for AI Max for search campaigns. Advertisers can now more directly compare AI Max performance and use additional tools to plan future campaigns. That's another practical example of AI being embedded inside an existing business process, in this case, digital advertising and campaign optimization. Google also announced that its Gemma family of open models has now surpassed 1 billion downloads. That milestone is notable because the AI market isn't developing entirely around a handful of massive proprietary models. There is also substantial demand for smaller, customizable models that developers can deploy across different environments, and competition for the people building these technologies remains intense. Longtime Google AI leader Jeff Dean discussed his decision to leave Google after 27 years and join the smaller AI startup Discovery Loop. Whatever happens with individual companies, the move illustrates how aggressively startups and established technology companies continue competing for experienced AI leadership and technical talent. The next frontier may not be entirely digital either. Unitree Robotics CEO Wang Xingxing said humanoid robots could be approaching their own ChatGPT moment. His argument is that improvements in AI models, hardware, and training techniques are beginning to converge in ways that could accelerate the development of general-purpose humanoid robots. It's still an emerging market, but robotics is increasingly becoming one of the major commercialization opportunities around embodied AI. Now, all of those capabilities require capital, and today's brief contains a remarkable number on that front. Broadcom is reportedly discussing more than $60 billion in debt financing tied to AI infrastructure. The overall financing structure could eventually become even larger. That illustrates just how capital-intensive the AI race has become. Scaling advanced computing systems isn't simply a question of whether companies can secure enough chips. They increasingly need access to enormous amounts of financing as well. Alibaba provides a concrete example of what that spending can do to near-term financial performance. Alibaba's quarterly profit fell 75% as the company accelerated spending on AI and cloud infrastructure. Revenue still increased 9%, and AI and cloud services revenue grew strongly, but the company is clearly accepting significant near-term pressure on profitability as it pursues its longer-term AI strategy. And that tension is starting to influence how CEOs talk about AI. Axios reported that corporate leaders are becoming more cautious about directly linking AI adoption with layoffs. Executives are under pressure from investors to demonstrate productivity gains from AI, but they're simultaneously managing employee concerns around automation and job security. So the language is increasingly shifting toward productivity and business outcomes rather than simply presenting AI as a workforce reduction tool. Put the AI stories together, and you get a pretty broad picture of where the technology stands. Citi, HSBC, and Standard Chartered are embedding AI in foreign exchange workflows. OpenAI is pushing ChatGPT toward direct computer use. Google's Gemma ecosystem has passed 1 billion downloads. Unitree sees a potential breakthrough approaching in humanoid robotics. An AI-driven hacking incident is highlighting the cybersecurity implications of autonomous systems. And Broadcom and Alibaba are demonstrating just how expensive the infrastructure behind all of this is becoming. Now let's move into pharma and life sciences. Manufacturing leads today's section, with Roche making another substantial investment in the United States. Roche's Genentech is investing $750 million to double the size of its Hillsboro, Oregon manufacturing operation. The expansion will add end-to-end device filling capacity supporting injectable medicines, pre-filled syringes, and auto-injectors. The investment is particularly relevant as Roche expands its metabolic and obesity pipeline. And the Oregon project follows a separate $2 billion investment in North Carolina supporting metabolic medicines. So Roche is putting significant capital behind the manufacturing capabilities that could eventually support its growing presence in obesity and metabolic disease. The public biotech markets also produced an interesting story today. Scribe Therapeutics has gained 43% from its first day IPO price after raising an upsized $150 million offering. That stands out because biotech investors have generally favored more de-risked, later stage programs. Scribe is earlier in development. Its lead candidate, STX1150, is an epigenetic silencing therapy targeting PCSK9 for cholesterol reduction, with initial clinical results expected in the first half of 2027. The strong post-IPO performance suggests there can still be public market demand for differentiated earlier-stage biotech platforms. On the regulatory front, Regeneron secured an important rare disease approval. The FDA approved Pasatru, or garetosmab, for adults with fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, or FOP. The rare disorder causes bone to develop in soft tissues. Pasatru becomes the second FDA-approved therapy for FOP in the United States, competing with Ipsen's Sohonos. In Phase 3 testing, patients receiving Pasatru developed substantially fewer new heterotopic ossification lesions than patients receiving placebo. Ultragenyx also reached a major regulatory milestone. The company secured accelerated FDA approval for Genglycos, formerly known as DTX401, for glycogen storage disease type 1A. This is Ultragenyx's first approved gene therapy. The approval also earned the company a rare pediatric disease priority review voucher, while another Ultragenyx gene therapy, UX111 for Sanfilippo syndrome, remains under FDA review. Moderna is back in the spotlight too. Following the positive Phase 3 melanoma results for the personalized mRNA cancer vaccine, it is developing with Merck. Investor enthusiasm around the company has returned sharply. The results have renewed attention on the possibility that mRNA could become a meaningful oncology platform rather than remaining primarily associated with infectious disease vaccines. Manufacturing quality is also part of today's brief. Strides Pharma received an establishment inspection report from the FDA for its Bengaluru manufacturing facility following an inspection in May. The agency classified the facility as voluntary action indicated after reviewing the company's corrective and preventive actions. The EIR closes that inspection cycle while reinforcing how important manufacturing compliance remains for pharmaceutical companies supplying the U.S. market. Obesity continues to generate activity outside the drug itself. Novonesis and Novo Nordisk are studying whether microbiome-focused supplements could complement GLP-1 obesity medicines. Results are expected in the second half of 2027, and the study will look at metabolic measures and microbiome biomarkers alongside weight loss treatment. It's another example of how the GLP-1 market is creating adjacent opportunities across life sciences as companies investigate products and interventions that could complement obesity therapies. And finally, Telix reported continued growth in radiopharmaceuticals. The company generated first-half revenue of approximately 477 million Australian dollars, up 22%, while net profit reached roughly 38 million Australian dollars. Telix maintained its full-year guidance as demand for its commercial radiopharmaceutical portfolio continued to expand. So today's life sciences news stretches from manufacturing scale-up to biotech capital markets, rare disease approvals, gene therapy, mRNA oncology, obesity, manufacturing compliance, and radiopharmaceutical growth. Now let's finish with business. Walmart gave investors another important read on the consumer. The retailer reported its slowest sales growth in 6 years and maintained a cautious outlook as shoppers become more selective with their spending. Consumers are still spending, but Walmart's results suggest households are becoming increasingly deliberate about where that money goes. Target is seeing a related dynamic, but is finding success with grocery. Food and beverage sales increased roughly 7%, while traffic rose 3.6%. Target is now expanding its private label food assortment as it tries to use grocery visits to drive spending elsewhere in its stores. So, grocery is becoming an increasingly important traffic engine within Target's broader turnaround. In financial services, Prudential Financial's PGIM reached an agreement to acquire approximately $3 billion of GreenSky home improvement loans through a multi-year arrangement. The deal expands PGIM's exposure to asset-backed finance and private credit. It also reflects the continued movement of private credit investors into consumer and specialty finance assets that have traditionally been associated more closely with banks. AI also made its way directly into corporate governance today. Cisco appointed Jason Murray and Tom Ondroff to its board and renamed its technology committee the AI Transformation and Technology Committee. That's more than a branding exercise. Cisco is targeting approximately $100 million of savings from AI, automation, and process improvements in fiscal 2027. It's a concrete example of AI transformation moving from the technology organization all the way into board-level governance and financial targets. AIA Group also reported a solid first half. The Asian insurer increased its value of new business by 10% to approximately $3.21 billion and raised its interim dividend by about 10%. Meanwhile, long-term Treasury yields remain an important financial market pressure point. U.S. policymakers have taken steps intended to improve demand and market stability, but long-term borrowing costs remain elevated. Those yields matter throughout the economy because government borrowing costs can flow into corporate financing, mortgages, consumer credit, and asset valuations. Energy costs are creating another pressure point, particularly in agriculture. U.S. farmers are approaching the energy-intensive harvest season as diesel prices rise sharply. Fertilizer expenses have increased as well amid disruptions in the Middle East. That combination is adding pressure to agricultural operating costs and could affect margins and broader food supply economics. And we'll finish where we started, with AI. Rising valuations of AI companies are now showing up directly in the earnings of S&P 500 companies that hold strategic equity stakes in those businesses. That means the AI investment boom is influencing corporate results, even at companies where AI isn't necessarily the primary operating business. The financial exposure to the AI ecosystem is becoming increasingly widespread. That wraps up the Biotech Executive Brief for Thursday, August 20th, 2026. Across AI, the news ranges from banks adopting Ant International's foreign exchange technology and OpenAI pushing further into computer use agents, to Broadcom's reported $60 billion plus financing effort and Alibaba accepting a major profit hit as it invests in AI infrastructure. In Pharma and Life Sciences, Roche is putting another $750 million into U.S. manufacturing. Scribe is standing out in the biotech IPO market. Regeneron and Ultragenyx reached important FDA milestones, and Moderna's melanoma data are renewing interest in mRNA oncology. And across business, Walmart and Target provided two different views of the consumer. PGIM made a $3 billion private credit move. Cisco elevated AI transformation to the board level, and higher financing and energy costs remain important economic pressures. If your organization is navigating AI, digital transformation, manufacturing technology, or technology strategy within life sciences, Sternbridge Technology Consulting helps biotech executives translate emerging technologies and industry developments into practical strategy and execution. Subscribe to the Biotech Executive Brief to stay current on the developments shaping artificial intelligence, pharma and life sciences, and the broader business landscape. Thanks for listening to the Biotech Executive Brief from Sternbridge Technology Consulting.